Life for All Ministries presents Daily Food Series, Word, Life, and Edification, Part 2. Title of Book 1, Are You Willing to Change Your Life? By Pedro. Week 3. He who believes in me, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Wednesday. Being filled with the Spirit. Read with prayer. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. Colossians chapter 3, verse 16. God's love is the most perfect thing that exists, surpassing all understanding. We cannot understand God's love because of the three-dimensional reality in which we live. Thus, we need to be taken to the spiritual sphere. The following is written in Ephesians: to know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Chapter 3, verse 19. We need to let Christ govern us. Christ never heads up nor governs his church by teachings. Knowing the Word does not mean being headed up or governed by Christ. Christ must be the head over our lives in practice, not in theory. And we must give him the preeminence and government of all things. Christ, as the Spirit, will only head us up if we allow him to fill us. When he fills each of us, the church will be filled with Christ until the fullness of God. How can we be filled with the Spirit? In Ephesians, we're warned not to be drunk with wine, but to be filled with the Spirit by speaking to one another in psalms, singing and praising the Lord from the heart with hymns and spiritual songs. Chapter 5, verses 18 and 19. Wine represents the things we seek in the world: pleasure, money, knowledge, joy, and so many other things that make us drunk. Everyone runs after money, their future, and prosperity. Humanity runs after the wine of this world. We, however, cannot live that way. The solution is to fill ourselves with the Spirit. That is, to fill ourselves with the Word. When we are filled with the Spirit through the Word, Christ will dwell in us richly. Colossians chapter 3, verse 16. The Word will do the work. Do not trust your ability to put a teaching into practice. The Word of God needs to be kept, practiced, and inscribed in our hearts. This is the commandment decreed by the Lord to the people of Israel in the wilderness. Now, this is the commandment, and these are the statutes and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded you to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God and keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command you. Deuteronomy 6, verses 1 and 2a. How can this be done? The first thing is to love the Lord with all your heart. The second, the Word must be in our hearts and not just in our minds as a teaching. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5 through 7. We also need to repeat, inculcate, imprint, engrave the Word of God in the hearts of our children. If the Word does not abide in the heart, but only remains in the mind as a teaching, it will not be fulfilled. God has worked so much with teenagers because they receive the Word with simplicity and spend all day inculcating it in themselves. They study and do well in school, and they also value the speaking of God, which dwells richly in them and instructs them through practicing immersion in the Word and war cries. We clearly see the positive change in the lives of these young people who are doing what Christ determines, not through teaching, but through immersion in the Word. Christ has headed up their lives. Before, they did what they wanted, and now they seek to do what Christ wants them to do. This is how, through the church, Christ will head up all things. Write the sentence that touched your heart the most. Highlight the key points in this sentence. Pray according to the content highlighted above.